So a huge thank you to all of you who have joined me today. I'm really excited to see quite a few of you on the call. And like I said, a few people will be catching the recording later. We're going to spend a half hour of power without being too energetic. But I'm going to introduce you to a really powerful 3-step career question session. So today is as active and interactive as you want it to be. So I appreciate you're probably on a phone or a computer at the moment. I would really recommend that you have a pen and a paper, or if that is too far away, you don't want to run away from the computer right now, you can obviously write down on your phone or your computer or something like that, the answers to some of the questions that we're going to cover. And if you are comfortable, I'm not going to read out your names or anything, but if you're comfortable to share in the chat what your answer is to a few of these questions, that would really help us as well. So let's dive in. Let's see if I can get this working. Here we go. So this session is for you if you know that you need to change roles or careers, but you don't really know where to start and you need a little bit of reflection time over the holidays. You might be feeling tired, drained, and ready for something better in 2022. I know a lot of people I've spoken to lately are pretty tired. It's been a big year, especially over here in Australia and New Zealand, where I know a lot of you are dialing in from. You might be feeling that people in your workplace, family, or friendship circle don't really understand why you're not happy in your job when you should be. Or you might not be feeling very miserable at all. You might just be curious to explore a career that feels more aligned to you. So that conversation can start with the 3 questions that you're going to be asking yourself today. And you might also be feeling that there never seems to be enough time for you to focus on what you need. So you might be one of many people, and I see this in a lot of my female clients especially, that spend a lot of time looking after other people and not enough time looking after yourself. This training is not, however, for you if you don't like investing time and energy in your own growth and well-being. And if you do get offended when someone gives you free tips and tools for half an hour and then makes you an offer at the end, you might also be highly offended by the great offer I'm going to give you at the end of today's session. But let's dive into it. What you're going to walk away with today, you are going to get an easy to use 3-step audit so you can visibly and clearly measure the different parts of your work or career that is working or maybe not working for you right now. Now, if you're not working at this present time, you can do the same exercise thinking about your most recent role. But this exercise is most powerful when you apply it to your current work or a volunteering engagement or something like that. You're going to walk away with some recommended action steps so you can start 2022 with clarity. So like I said, I've got some great offers for you at the end, but I also have a lot of free tools that I'm going to share with you before I leave you today. And more than anything, whether you share your answers in the chat box today or not, it's an honest check-in with yourself so that you can put words on how you actually feel. And this is a safe space, so whether you don't want to share it in the group, that's fine. But if you are comfortable sharing them with me afterwards, I would love for you, whether you're watching the recording or the live session, to share with me how you're going, because I work in confidentiality, so you can say whatever you like to me. And if you do stay to the end today of the session today, I'm going to give you my free career checklist, which some of you might have already accessed, and also a 20-minute one-on-one career clarity call with me. And I do have 2 great end-of-year offers as well, which is an individual career plan. I'll talk more about these a little bit later on, but it's an individual career planning tool with one-on-one work with me, as well as online work. And I also have a new coaching program that's going to be starting in February next year. But more about that later. So I do know quite a few of you on the call today, but for those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Amy Peterson. That is not a typo in my surname. I am from Scandinavia, so it's a double S on my surname. It gets misspelled all the time. But I wanted to share a little bit about you, not just because I'm a global traveler, but also a little bit about my career path and what led me to this call with you today. So I was born and raised in Sweden, where I mostly worked in retail and hospitality, and I also studied political science and did a short stint in policy work back home in local government. I then really loved traveling and exploring, so I ended up heading over to the United States, where I spent time working in childcare as well as studying. I then randomly ended up in the UK, where I worked more in HR, admin, and finance for a few years. And finally, about 11 years ago now, I came to the beautiful land of Australia, where I started out in sales and project management, moved gradually into marketing, and have been doing coaching since 2013 as well. And I guess the reason I want to show you this is because I know that each of you listening, however old you are, you also have maybe not as many countries, or maybe you have more countries, but you have a career path as well that's led you to the very point you are right now. And sometimes, aside from the 3 tips I'm going to share with you today, it's really important to take stock on what we've done in the past and be really proud of how far we've gotten and how much we've learned along the way. Okay, so before we dive into the 3 questions that I know that you guys are dying to look at, I want to leave you with this. So if you only take away one thing from today, if you forget all the questions and all that sort of stuff, remember that reflection and setting an intention for yourself is the start. It's a really important start, and that's what we're going to do today. But action is actually what's going to bring the change to life for you. So I always say to people, reflection and planning is really, really important, but you need to take action. Otherwise, you're not going to see any changes. And I don't have kids myself, but I know a few of you on the call today do. And it's kind of the same thing as, kids, they don't do what you say, they copy what you do. And it's interesting because your brain is kind of like a child sometimes. Your brain will listen in, but it will pay attention to what you're actually doing. And I guess a healthy way of thinking about this is going, if you show up for yourself and do things for yourself to move yourself forward, your brain will start to realize that, oh, it's not just talk, I'm actually putting it into action. So I'm going to leave that one with you. And I hope you guys have your pen or your phone or your note-taking device ready, because we are going to dive now into the very first question. Hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, I'm going to move my little head around. Hopefully that's all right. And maybe it's just visible on my screen. Okay, so the very first question we're going to ask is, how do you feel about where you work? So we're going to take a career audit. And I want you to think about your current role, or if you're not working, your most recent role, but ideally where you're working right now. And I want you to think about where you work. And by this, I mean where as well as how you work. So for example, a lot of us at the moment have been working online to some extent, especially office jobs in lockdowns, etc. I know our friends over in Auckland are probably still in lockdown, but hopefully coming out very soon. But are you working in an online context? So you're working in the office or in a workplace of some kind, or is it a mix of the two? Also think about how you're working. So what channels or communication things are used in your workplace? Do you use Teams, email, Slack, phone, share folders, whatever that looks like? So specifically, I want you to ask yourself, sorry, I'll move my little head again. I can't even see my slide there. So on a scale from 1 to 10, so 1 being not great and 10 being fantastic, extra awesome, I want you to ask yourself, how do you feel about your office or your workspace? I'm going to give you a second to write that down for yourself. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how do you feel about the space that you're working in? Don't second guess it, just put down a number. It doesn't really matter that much. Your gut instinct will usually tell you what you should be saying. Second point is to think about, how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10 about your commute, or how you get to your workspace? If you're anything like me and you've worked from home a lot, your commute might be 5 steps from your bedroom to your home office. So you might be feeling that that's a 10 out of 10, or you might prefer to get a little bit more movement in or something like that. But think about your average week. If you, how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being not so good and 10 being, yeah, it's a pretty good commute. I'm really happy with how I get to work. And you might be going, Emmy, why do I need to write this down? We all know if we write things down, they are going to happen, or we are going to reflect on them differently. You can come back and do this exercise again over the holidays as well. But it's always good to start with a benchmark and write things down for you. All right, next up, I want you to think about the systems that you use in your work. So your workplace, especially if you work online a lot like I do using Zoom here today with you, most of us have a lot of online systems that creates part of our workspace. So I appreciate you probably have a lot of different systems that you use, but think of it holistically, the general system or systems available to you in your work. On a scale from 1 to 10, how happy are you with how that is working? 1 being it doesn't work at all, it crashes all the time, it's miserable. 10 being really good, happy, no complaints. And once you've written that one down, we're going to go on to the last one. Some of you might have already jumped ahead actually, because I've got them all up on the screen. But the final one I want you to think about is the processes and ways of working. So this is different to the systems that you use in your workplace. This is how happy are you with how work is flowing to you and from you in your workplace? You know, is there clear responsibilities? You know, is it a clear line of sign off? So again, 1 being not very happy, Emmy, it's not working all that great, to 10 being we've got it all sorted, it's really smooth and really well functioning. And that is your overview on looking at question 1, which is where you are working. And this is a really, really important one that people often forget about. So make sure either pause this video if you're watching the recording or come back to this question later if you haven't filled them all in. You can also add steps to this if you want to get more granular. Okay, everyone's still there and awake? Let me see. Got someone in the chat box. Nah, you guys are all good? Beautiful, cool. All right, I'll keep going. Hang on, now you guys started chatting. Thumbs up, awesome. Okay, cool. So if you want to share at any point what your answer is, so if there's a particular question that you're finding, you know, triggering or difficult to answer, I'm going to give you my email address as well at the end, so you can send me an email and I'm happy to clarify anything for you. But as I'm talking, if something comes up for you, feel free to put it in the chat so we can all learn, and you can send a private chat just to me if you don't want everyone else to see it. Alrighty, Roo, let's move on to question 2. Sorry, I'm covering up my own head here again. I'll keep moving myself around on the screen. It's a bit like dancing. All right, the second key area. So we've looked at where and how we work. Now we're going to dive into who we're working with. And this is really, really important, and it's got a lot of layers, and collaboration in work environments can be one of those things that is the most challenging for many. So when we're looking at this, what do I mean by who you work with? Well, I mean the relationships that you have in your workplace. So things like your direct manager or leader, you might have more than one, and that might be a challenging thing. Could be your leadership team as a whole, your immediate team, so whether you manage other people or you might just be thinking about it like the peers on your own team. And finally, the culture in the organization. So this could become its own topic and become really big. But today I want you to think about the culture in the organization as almost like a personality or like a person. You know, how well connected are you and your personal values to that? If that makes sense. So let's do our writing again, shall we? So I'm going to give you some time to fill this in. You've probably got the hang of it now. So I want you to fill in your own little document or phone on a scale from 1 to 10. How happy are you with A, your team? So that's your immediate team that you're working with. B, your manager. So how happy are you with the leadership and the relationship and the professional relationship? Because someone can be a really lovely person, but not a great manager, or a really great manager, but not a very nice person. So I want you to think of them as your leader or your manager first. And finally, your organization. So how happy are you with the overall culture and feel in your organization? I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about that and go with your gut instinct here. Good question. Someone's asking here if leadership includes leadership above my manager. Yes, you can add that there if you like. Oh, I'm not hiding your screen. Okay, it's just at my end. I keep moving my own head around. That's good. Yes, so under B, you can put the leadership team as well if you like, or you can add an additional point. It kind of depends on the role that you have and how many leaders you have working near you or that you deal with on the frequent. But you can say you can have your manager and your leadership team as one, or you can split them out in B1 and B2 if you like. Good question. And I probably don't need to explain in too much detail why this is important, but you can start to see when we're doing this audit or this check-in of every now and then I have a chat to someone who comes to me and says that they're really not happy in their job. And to understand why you're not happy in your job, it could be any of the things that we've covered. And we're going to get into the last and final question very soon. But if we, if it's the ways of working, you know, it's question one that is the challenge. If, you know, if it's you have a problem with your manager, and Tracy might be able to correct me here, but I saw a stat not long ago that as many as 80% of people who leave their roles leave it as a result of the relationship or the lack of relationship with their direct manager. There are many different studies. I'm sure those numbers can fluctuate a lot, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people do leave because of the relationship with their manager that they have. So it is a very important part of happiness at work. So I trust that you've got a number from 1 to 10, and don't put any value to it. If it's really low, really high, it doesn't matter. All this is an audit or a check-in. It's kind of like checking the temperature. It just is. You know, if it is that number, that is just what it is. And there's no judgment in that. We're just taking stock right now. Nothing, got to do nothing about it right now. And moving on then to the final question, which is what you're doing at work. And this is a lot around what we do obviously has a huge impact on our well-being and sense of fulfillment. And I spoke about this in a recent webinar that some of you might have seen over at Do Good Jobs, where we talked about the three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool is basically doing something that you're good at, something that challenges you, and something that is fun. And when those three legs are present in your career, you tend to be a lot happier. But that obviously really only covers the main area here, which is what you do for work. So when we talk about what specifically, no pun intended, what specifically do I mean by that? We talk about tasks and responsibilities. So what is your role responsible for delivering in the company or in the business that you work in? What are your KPIs or your key performance indicators? And how clear or aligned is your stuff that you do every day to the role description that you were hired to do in the first place? I see this quite often with people who are unhappy in their roles, where there's been a lot of slippage or sliding, where their role they actually do day to day is not very aligned at all to the role description, or they kind of got to write their own role description, but things kind of evolved along the way. So if that is you and you're on this call today, you are certainly not the only one who's in that situation. So let's get to our 1 to 10 scale here. So I want you to think about, on a scale from 1 to 10, think about how happy you are with your role overall from the perspective of what you get to do every day. So if you look at your average week or month or day, how happy are you with the things that you do most of the time? So again, 1 being not happy at all and 10 being really, really happy. And then I want you to look specifically at your tasks and your responsibilities. So the overall role is more of a general feel. How happy are you with the things that you have to do most of the time? I appreciate we all have to do things sometimes that we don't love, and that's okay. But yeah, have a think about that one there on your tasks and responsibilities. And finally, put a number to how happy are you with your growth or learning opportunities in your current role? And learning and growth can be a couple of different things. It can be things like, do you have a great manager that challenges you and teaches you a lot of things? Or are there other people in your company who do? Or do they actively promote learning, professional development, that kind of stuff? So depending on your company, answer this, I guess, from a broad perspective. How happy are you on a scale from 1 to 10 with your learning and growth opportunities? And a bonus one that I just thought of throwing in here, because I had this conversation with someone the other day, a bonus D option for those of you who want to go for it, is how happy are you about your opportunities to progress in your current organization? Meaning, can you see what the next role in the company would be for you? Or have you gotten to a point where you can't go any higher? Maybe you don't want to go any higher because promotion is not for everyone. But is there another area in the business that you can see yourself moving into, or how happy are you with your opportunities there? So again, just popping down your number, whatever that is for you. Trust that you're all writing away. I actually did this myself, by the way, just for full transparency. I sat down and I looked at this, and it is a really important exercise. I actually do a flavor of this, probably not as formalized, pretty much every couple of months. And it's something that you can really do to kind of stay on track. And when you start to feel a little bit off, you can kind of come back to this and work out what particular area do you need to address to make it feel better, and or have a conversation with your boss or something like that. Cool. All right. So we're going to do a quick recap here. So how would you then rate your where and how you work? If you missed any of those questions, feel free to watch the recording and pause on that slide and have a look at it again. You need to also look at who you work with and what specifically it is that you do. And this is the most simple, powerful audit to work out, especially if you've got that thing in your head where like everything feels wrong. I want you to consider this. And let's come back to this one because it's an important one before I share some really cool tools with you as in terms of next steps. So remember that reflection and setting an intention is the start, but action is bringing the change to life. Think of your brain as the child in your life. If you don't have children yourself, you can probably picture this anyway. Kids don't do what you say, they copy what you do. And your brain and your mind is paying constant attention to what you're actually going to do and carry through with. So remember to always try to stand up for yourself, because we owe ourselves that, right? All right, so what now? Where do I go from here? Well, there's 3 things that you can do and take away from today. So you can download the free checklist. I know a few of you on the call have already done this. If you haven't already, go to thebridgecoaching.com.au, click on the button at the top where it says step 1, download your checklist. That will give you a more comprehensive and slightly different exercise to what we've done here today on the call. I'll show you the special end of year offers that I've got for you in just a second. And finally, I offer all of you on the call and all of you who are watching the recording to book in for a free 20-minute clarity call with me, where we basically just have a quick check-in based on the questions that you asked here today, and kind of agree really top line where you need to focus next, or what's your next little micro step is. So that's complimentary and free for all of you on the call and all of you watching the recording. So I've got 2 really cool offers for you, because I was thinking about what can I do to help you start 2022 in the best possible way. And I know people work differently. So the very first offer that I have for you is 5 spots only, but this is a one-on-one session with me, plus access to my online programs. So you get access to Your Next Step, which is my career planning online module program. You get the job interview prep online program and a bonus 60-minute session with me held anytime between now and the 28th of February. So if you want to do something before Christmas, you can, or if you want to save it for January, you can do that as well. And the whole bundle is actually valued at $497. But for the first people who sign up before the 31st of December, you get this for $197. So it's a $300 discount, which I think you can all agree is a good gift to start off the year. I will be sending you the link that you see there on the screen as well if you're keen to take this up. And then I got thinking, action taking is really cool, and some people love doing this work by themselves, but I know that there's an awful lot of you out there who need a little bit of group accountability, And so what I'm going to do in middle of February next year is I'm going to open up for 8 people only a group coaching program called the Mid-Career Circle. And this space, it's not for all of you on the call, I appreciate that, but this space is designed to help you with your individual planning in a group setting. So it includes 8 weeks of support. So it's an 8-week program. We have weekly focus areas and group accountability. There's 4 fortnightly live calls with me. 2 of them will be group coaching sessions and 2 will be 60-minute masterclasses to help you unpack your next career steps. And you also get unlimited email support during the whole program. And that is currently offered at $697 or 4 payments of $199. And just to help you get started before the new year, I do offer anyone who signs up before the 31st of December, you will get a 60-minute session, one-on-one, just you and me, at no extra cost. And this session can be held anytime before the 14th of Feb, which is just before the group coaching program starts. So if you are interested in this one or the other bundle, or you just want to chat to me in general, either way, you can book in for a free 20-minute clarity call with me, and I'll be happy to talk you through more detail about the coaching program or any of the other support that I offer. And I realize that I've spoken for quite a while and we are 1 minute to 7, but I would love to take any questions. I'm happy to go back to any slides you feel like I missed or skimmed over too quickly. What are your thoughts? Any questions? You can also take yourself off mute if you feel brave to hop on and ask your question here. I'm going to just take a quick drink of water. I'll stick around for a few more minutes if anyone does have any questions. But yeah, I've been talking for half an hour, so I'm going to have a swig of water first. I guess overall, how did you feel about putting the 1 to 10 marker on these questions? Was it helpful for you to kind of start pinpointing where you're actually at and what you're actually feeling? Beautiful, super helpful questions. Thank you. Great question. So any thoughts on the tendency to score high just because we feel we need to be grateful for what we have? That is a really, really good question. And I guess you could see it in 2 different ways. I mean, we've had a really challenging time, and it is an important year with all the restrictions and challenges that we've had, especially in Australia and New Zealand, to be grateful to have a job or to have an opportunity to go to a certain place and contribute to that organization. I think what you could do if you scored very high on a lot of the things and you're still on this call today and you feel like you have a pull or a curiosity to if there is something more, there's nothing wrong with being happy with where you are whilst exploring something different. The thing you could look at as well is, I know that there tends to be people who never really give a 10, but they tend to give a 7 or an 8 to most things. What you could look at is, did you score slightly lower in a particular area? Because if I have a really awful day, I might say, yeah, my manager today, I feel, or this week or this month, I feel it's a 2. But some of you on this call, you might never give a 2 to anyone, because for you, like, it'd feel wrong to put such a low score. So look for your theme. If there's a particular question or a particular subcategory that you scored a bit lower on, would probably be my recommendation there. But great question. That's one I would love to unpack in a conversation if possible. Great point, Tracy. Is it worth doing the scoring again in a week or 2 to see if our initial feelings are still valid? Yes, absolutely. I would actually even encourage you to perhaps do it a couple of times over the Christmas holiday. So you've done it today. If you haven't already, you can probably, I'll send you the recording within 24 hours so you can go through and make sure that you have an answer to all of them. But yeah, definitely check in maybe pre the holidays before you go do whatever you do for Christmas or for the holiday season. And again in January, how do you feel when you're about to go back to the workplace? Because that's usually a big trigger for a lot of people. How are we feeling when we're actually going back to the workplace again? Great comments and questions, everyone. Sorry, I'm just catching up here. it's easy to stay put in a job because from the outside, there's seemingly nothing wrong. That's the case for me, but I still always have the nagging feeling that something needs to change. Yes, this happened. I hear this a lot when I work with people. So a lot of people go, oh, to work with a career coach, surely I must really dislike my job. That is not the case at all. For most people that I help, they actually want to go from good or okay to something great. And sitting in something that's good or average or kind of okay can really hold some people back from being truly happy in what they do. And this is not about seeking impossible happiness or anything like that, or not being grateful for what we have, but it's also about acknowledging when we're in the wrong place. And I often use the relationship analogy. Imagine if you dated someone or you were in a relationship with someone that was kind of okay. Staying with that person for longer will only mean that you're not going to be able to meet anyone else or create anything else that could potentially be more meaningful for you. That said, always do these things with, in a healthy, sustainable way that works for you. Great questions. All right, hang on. Let's see here. My score is pretty low. No surprise. I definitely want to leave my job. What advice do you give people who want to leave, are looking but haven't found any roles that are interesting? I go through an exercise which is called great, okay, and not okay. And I'll give you the mini tip right now of how to do that exercise. So sit down and go, what is like a great role in your mind's eye right now? What type of job would that be? Is there a particular company that you'd really like to work for? And just outline like what great looks like for you. That column might be small and very targeted, that you have a particular thing that you really want. In the middle column, I want you to put something that's okay, something that is perfectly fine, that you're happy to do, maybe even your current job right now. It sounds like it's probably more in the not okay bucket, that you don't want to do that anymore or ever again. So start looking for roles that would be a stepping stone or okay that would get you to great eventually. That's a really condensed version, but I take people through a more detailed exercise there. Maybe I'll do it again when I'm in the less grateful mood. That is a very funny comment. And yes, maybe you should, following Tracy's comment, maybe come back and do this exercise again and do it a couple of times, because it's really just a very quick calibration or pulse check or temperature check, if you will. Okay, I think that was all the questions for now. We've run a few minutes over, but only because your questions were awesome and I have had so much fun hanging out with you guys. Okay, sorry, one more question here. Curious about which countries you enjoyed working in the most and what monetary benefits. Oh, that's a tricky one, Ravi, about the non-monetary benefits. Firstly, I think my favorite country to work in so far has been Australia, but probably because I've had a very diverse career in Australia and I've gotten to do a lot of really, I get a lot of change and challenge in the different roles that I have. So I think for that reason, I was quite young when I lived in the US and in Sweden. So I worked in your typical sort of student jobs and things like that at the time. Non-monetary benefits, I think we're starting to see a lot of this. Those of you who are on my newsletter, you would have seen the video I sent out to you yesterday about the Great Resignation, or what I call the Great Reevaluation. And a lot of the themes that are coming through there that has nothing to do with money are things like flexibility, extra holidays, so more time to go and do other things, for example. Yeah, non-monetary benefits are becoming more and more about flexibility, and not because everyone wants to work from home the whole time, but just having the opportunity to choose where you work from and the hours that you work without having to do the 9 to 5 specifically. Cool. Another comment. Goodness me, you guys are awesome. All right, cool. These questions would be great before doing a performance review. Yes, they are really, really challenging. And the thing about a performance review, it's really easy to think of, it's almost like a job interview, right? It's like a lot of people can feel a bit put on the spot and like it's all about them reviewing you, when in fact, both at an interview and in a performance review, you are also reviewing and giving feedback to them. How is it working? Have you learned a lot? Have you felt held back by something? So all of those things are really, really key things to remember as well. I have had a fab time with you guys. Please do book in for a career clarity call with me. It's 20 minutes, no obligation. We can chat about whatever you want, but I would love if you do book in. Please do bring your answers to some of the questions today if you're comfortable to do so. Career coaching with me is always a confidential, safe space, so nothing that you share with me will ever be shared with anyone else without your permission. And if you have any questions or other comments, feel free to drop me an email via hello@thebridgecoaching.com.au. I love hearing from you guys, and especially your key challenges, what you're really stuck on. I love hearing things like that so I can create videos and checklists and content for you to really help you move forward in your career. You will be getting an email from me within 24 hours with the offers that I shared with you today. So we've got the online and the one-on-one session and the group coaching program. If either of those are of interest for you, I would love to have a chat with you directly to see if it's a good fit. And thanks again for being awesome. Let me see here. What do we have? Comments coming through. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here today. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening wherever in the world you are, or morning if you're based in Europe. And I look forward to chat to you all very soon. Thanks again and have a good night. Bye.